Good morning everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Beavercraft 3-knife starter kit, which you probably can't tell from here, but there are 3 knives in here as well as some other excellent accessories. Now this can be had relatively cheaply on Amazon, and for the beginner whittler looking for like a beginner set, this is arguably one of the best ways to go about it. Now here in a second we're going to open this up and see exactly what's in here and do a little review of each knife in detail as well as some of the accessories. So stick around, because if you're looking for a great beginner set, the Beavercraft 3-knife kit is well worth a look. Alright, so here is what you're first greeted with when you get the Beavercraft 3-in-1 tool kit set thing. So what we have here, 3 knives obviously, encased in this fancy paper sheath. Very, very nice. And then of course we have the Band-Aids, which I think are a great touch. It came with, I believe, 3 more, so a total of 6, but I've actually used them. They are not high quality Band-Aids, but they do... Sorry, they're not even Band-Aids. They're Santa Verde, so make sure you keep that in mind because they are not Band-Aid brand. I don't want to presume. So there's that. That's not bad. Glad they included that, actually. Here's the leather strap. Now, I've stropped with both sides. Some people prefer to do the rough side. Some people prefer to do the smooth side. I prefer the rough side as well. And I've actually used it quite a bit, so you'll notice the honing compound here is starting to wear down. This works really well. I mean, it's hard to mess this up. The honing compound they include is pretty good. I've been able to maintain and even improve the edges on these using this, so this is a nice touch just to include that. And of course the I don't know what you call this this material, what's it called, like a potato sack or gunny sack, I don't know. So anyway, this is pretty good. This is what I actually keep them in, so I have nothing bad to say about that. Works really well. So let's talk about the knives themselves. First, let me get them out. Safety is number 1, so I'm leaving the paper on there because I would hate to cut myself on video. Well, we'll just put that away, but that's nice that they included that. So here we are, the grand unveiling. So first we have the chip knife. Now this is a 1-inch blade, and as you can see, very unique shape. Not much to it really. All of their knives are a little bit lightweight. If I were to compare, and I hate to do this on this review, but to compare to maybe a flex cut, where you can see the filling that they use around the blade, that's maybe adds to the weight a little bit. I don't know exactly. There's not a huge difference in weight, but you can just tell that this one's just a little bit less high quality than something like this. So just wanted to point that out. But overall, on its own merit, this is very comfortable to hold, and 1-inch blade. I personally don't do a lot of chip carving, so I can't really say how well it works for that specifically, but I have used it for just like small little applications, getting in there and just kind of using it for its more blunted tip, which sometimes works pretty well. Now overall, they cut really well right out of the box. They're pretty decently sharp. Now to be whittling sharp like I personally prefer, you probably are going to want to sharpen them a little bit, but that's totally up to you. They actually work, I would say, just fine without having to add any more to it. But since it does include the leather strap here, well, there you go. You've got everything you need to maybe hone that edge a little bit greater. So next, let's move on to the detail blade. Now this is a 1.38-inch detail blade. So you can get a good look at it there. Now personally, I prefer this type of length. I like to move around in the details a bit, and I think that this is pretty well perfect for what I prefer. The only thing I do wish is that the tip here wasn't just cut off. I wish it came to a point. Of course, that's a personal preference. Some people might prefer it the way it is, because then it doesn't gouge into certain things as you're whittling around corners or whatever. And again, feels fairly substantial. I mean, it's nothing really bad to say about it. The finish here, it's not really finished. It's sanded down, obviously. It's very comfortable to hold, and so I have nothing bad to say about that. It's a little bit slick, which isn't a bad thing, but you don't have to worry about anything gouging you or any issues like that, so the handle's good too. We'll probably come back to that though. Lastly, ooh, that's nice. We have the roughing blade. The roughing blade is a 1.97-inch, so it's pretty long. I will say that I believe that the measurements they give in imperial, so the inches, is a little bit different because Beavercraft is based in an area that uses the metric system, so they converted it, I believe. So it's a little bit odd in the measurements if you're watching from America, but In any case, 1.97 inches, and that's a good length for a roughing blade. Takes care of things pretty easily. I never really noticed this, but it's a slightly different color than some of the other ones, but doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's what you get. So we get the 1.97 inch roughing blade, the 1.38 inch detail blade, that's this one, not that one, and the 1 inch chip carving blade. So that's what you get out of the box in terms of blades. So let's talk about each one's build material for a little bit. So first of all, as I mentioned before, they're not razor sharp out of the box, but they do pretty well. So you probably will want to hone them a little bit, maybe work on a stone, possibly. Personally, I've only ever used the strop, and I find that it keeps it whittling sharp for me. Given the type of steel they used, which by the way is a high carbon, what they call a 65G, I'm not terribly familiar with how that stacks up against other types of steel and everything, but I do know that that's a relatively common blade material used for like just general hand knives and stuff like that. The American counterpart, according to Beavercraft, I reached out to them and they said that the American counterpart is 1066 steel, which is not necessarily the highest quality steel, especially for edge retention. And because it's high carbon, it is going to rust if you leave it out in the weather, but hopefully you don't do that, and hopefully it doesn't get exposed to a lot of water anyway, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So the benefit of this type of steel isn't necessarily that it's the most durable out there, that it is going to hold its edge for the longest, but it is a really good strength to price ratio. So in other words, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's still pretty durable for the price. Now you do get a Rockwell hardness of between 56 and 59 according to Beavercraft, so that's pretty good. That's right in that range you want to see these at. So for edge retention, what I can tell you is, using it quite a bit myself, I find myself wanting to run them across the strop about every 25 minutes or so. So they're not terrible, but I do feel like they lose their edge a little bit quicker than the Flex Cut, for example, and some others. But again, they are using different steel, which is a little bit cheaper to use, so I can't really fault them for that, but that's just what you're getting, just so you're aware of it. So talking about the overall feel, which I kind of briefly mentioned before, generally speaking, you can kind of tell, just like when you're holding in your hand, like, does the blade come too far out from the handle at the base? Does the overall just ergonomic shape of the handle lend itself well to long-term whittling? And I would say yes on all counts for these. Now, they do have, interestingly enough, these kind of like, they're not sharp by any means, but these kind of edges. I don't know if you can see it on camera here. There you go. That's kind of showing up there a little bit along here. It's not terribly uncomfortable, but at times you do notice it, especially if, like me, you get concentrating and you start to over grip a little bit. So I would have maybe preferred that they widened out the base here a little bit and then sanded out or smoothed out this kind of ridge. But there you go, you can kind of see it. It's just a small, minor gripe. Now, I've used these several different times for several different projects, including some of the ones you see on the table here, and I gotta say that they work really well. Like, I have no complaints for performance as far as that goes, but just keep in mind that they're not going to hold their edge as well as maybe some more of the premium knives do, but again, for the price, they do a fantastic job. So we really do have to factor in the price when we talk about these, because, you know, if they cost double what they do, then they would be a pretty poor product for the price. But for the price that they actually charge, they're perfect for beginners. You might find yourself having to run these over a strop more often than other more premium knives, but that's a trade-off, and I think that's okay. So, especially because they include it, so you don't need anything else. It's all right, in my opinion, that you have to sharpen them maybe a little bit more often than some others. Plus, man, I just love that they included these Band-Aids, because you're going to need them more than likely if as a beginner. In fact, like I said, I've used them several times. So in that regard, let's go right into the wrap-up. So there you have it, the Beavercraft 3-knife set for beginners as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, everything you get in this is a phenomenal value, especially for the price. With the strop, the Band-Aids, which were a very nice touch, the carrying case, and of course the 3 knives themselves, phenomenal value. And so if you're new to whittling, or if you're not 100% sure if this wood carving thing is for you, this is a perfect way to dip your toes in and just see how much you like it, you know, whether it's worth pursuing for you. and going from there. Now, of course, these could be the only set that you ever get, but odds are, if you are more familiar with whittling and as your skills progress, you probably will want to see yourself into one of these, maybe flex cut, which also comes in a 3-knife kit as well. You can see my review on that on this channel. But again, for the beginner, phenomenal value. If you want to step it up and maybe start with the flex cut, that's totally fine, but you will have to find yourself buying a few more accessories to go with it, like the leather strap, unless you make one yourself, of course. But again, for the beginner, absolutely perfect. So overall, for the beginner, I would highly recommend this set. And again, for the price, the bang for your buck is a phenomenal value. And so you really have nothing to lose. If you did want to step it up and maybe go with a flex cut to start, that's totally fine. Those are knives that'll probably end up keeping up with your skill level longer into the future. But again, the Beavercraft could potentially do that as well. So the final verdict is a thumbs up and then another thumbs up, which is a near perfect verdict. So definitely check these out, especially if you're a beginner looking to get into whittling as a hobby for yourself. If you'd like a written version of this review, be sure to check out my website. I'll leave a link in the description. And as always, thanks for watching.